The desert night carried a silence that seemed unnatural, as if even the wind feared to disturb the sleeping valley. The moon hung low, its pale glow casting sharp shadows across the jagged ridgelines. The Navy SEAL team moved quietly through the darkness, boots crunching against loose gravel with calculated precision. Every man knew his place, every step drilled into muscle memory after years of training. They were hunters, and the compound nestled in the hollow ahead was their prey. Among them was Captain Rachel Morgan, an intelligence officer whose presence was tolerated, not welcome. She wasn't one of them. She had never endured Budsis, never fought through the bone-chilling surf, or carried a log until her shoulders bled. Her battles had been fought in operations centers, surrounded by screens and satellite feeds. She was sharp, respected in Washington, but here in the field, the SEALs saw her as an outsider. To them, she was an analyst playing soldier. Yet Rachel had insisted on joining this mission. For weeks, she had tracked the compound, analyzing drone footage, listening to intercepted chatter, and studying the smallest anomalies others overlooked. She had pieced together a picture that pointed to danger, though not everyone agreed. Command had finally relented, allowing her to embed for ground truth. The SEALs had rolled their eyes. To them, intel analysts were notorious for seeing patterns where none existed. The team leader, Commander Daniel Hayes, was a man of few words. His men respected him without question, and Rachel knew his trust was hard to earn. He didn't dismiss her outright, but neither did he lean on her judgment. Tonight, he had given her space to observe, but she could sense his skepticism. Every decision in the field was his, and the unspoken truth was clear. If she slowed them down, she'd be ignored. As they approached the outskirts of the valley, Rachel paused. Her trained eyes caught something most soldiers would walk past, without a second thought. The sand near the dry riverbed carried footprints, too many, too fresh. They weren't scattered like those of villagers, but concentrated, purposeful, as if men had moved in formation. She crouched, tracing one with her gloved hand. The depth suggested recent passage, and the direction pointed straight toward the high ground overlooking the compound. "Commander Hayes," she whispered, "these tracks aren't civilian. You're walking into a layered defense." One of the SEALs, Sergeant Cole, glanced back, his tone carrying amusement. "Looks like goats to me, Captain, not Taliban." A few of the others smirked, keeping their weapons raised as they advanced. Rachel stood, brushing sand from her hand. "Those aren't livestock prints. They're tactical. Look at the spacing consistent. Stride, no hesitation. That's a unit moving with purpose." Cole chuckled under his breath. "I'll take your word for it. But unless they're carrying RPGs, we've got this." The others didn't slow. To them, Rachel's concerns were noise, distractions from the mission. She bit back frustration, reminding herself she wasn't here to win popularity. She was here to keep them alive. Her gaze swept the ridgelines. The moonlight revealed faint scarring along the rocks, small disturbances where vegetation had been cut or displaced. To untrained eyes, it was nothing, but Rachel recognized the pattern. She had studied enough ambush sites to know. Those weren't accidents. They were positions, prepared in advance. She caught up with Hayes, her voice low but firm. "Sir, I've seen this setup before. They're funneling us into a kill zone. If we move straight in, they'll have height, cover, and line of sight." Hayes didn't respond immediately. His green eyes flicked across the ridge through his night vision goggles, scanning for signs. The terrain was still, no movement visible, no heat signatures obvious. Finally, he murmured, "Noted. Stay close." It wasn't dismissal, but it wasn't agreement either. Rachel exhaled slowly, forcing calm. She remembered the briefing room in Virginia, where she had shown overlays of patrol routes and satellite captures. pointing to subtle changes disturbed Earth, missing livestock, disappearing villagers. It all hinted that the enemy had fortified the valley. Yet the final intelligence estimate downplayed the threat, chalking it up to normal activity. Now, standing in the shadow of the mountains, her unease crystallized into certainty. Every nerve screamed that something was wrong. The SEALs adjusted their formation as they neared the compound. Their discipline was undeniable. Every movement was fluid, silent, precise. Rachel respected their skill, but she knew skill wasn't enough against a hidden threat they refused to acknowledge. Her instincts, sharpened by years of poring over patterns and anomalies, told her the enemy had prepared for this exact moment. She glanced again at the hillside. A faint glimmer caught her eye so quick, she almost doubted it. But she froze, focusing. The reflection returned, faint but deliberate, like moonlight bouncing off glass. Her stomach tightened. That was no accident. It was a scope. Someone up there was watching. Rachel's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "Sir, we're exposed." "I just saw optics on the ridge," Cole hissed, annoyed. "We'd be taking fire already if that were true." She turned on him, anger breaking through her restraint. "That's exactly what they want you to believe. You're being watched. They're waiting for us to commit, to move deeper before they trigger the trap." The team slowed, tension rippling through the formation. Hayes raised a clenched fist, signaling silence. Every man froze. The valley seemed to hold its breath. Rachel's pulse thundered in her ears as she scanned again, desperate to find proof before their doubt crushed her warning entirely. And then she saw it. A second flicker, this time higher, positioned to triangulate. 2 scopes, 2 shooters. Her certainty solidified. "Sir," she whispered, her voice steady now, "there are at least 2 sniper teams. If we advance, they'll cut us down." "I know what I saw." Hayes lowered his goggles, studying her face in the moonlight. For the first time, she saw hesitation in his eyes. His men shifted uneasily, their earlier smirks fading into silence. The only sound was the rustle of wind against the dry brush. Rachel held his gaze, unflinching. "I've tracked these people for months. This is their terrain. If we go in blind, we don't come out." The commander didn't reply, but the weight of her words settled heavily over the team. For the first time that night, doubt began to creep into their iron confidence, and the valley, cloaked in shadows, seemed to close in tighter around them. The order to halt lingered in the air like a fragile thread. The SEALs, crouched low among scattered rocks, watched their commander for direction. No one spoke, though their eyes betrayed impatience. These men were trained for action, not paralysis. To them, hesitation was risk, momentum was survival. Yet Rachel Morgan's warning had planted doubt, and even seasoned operators couldn't ignore a commander's raised fist. Rachel remained still, every muscle taut. Through her night vision goggles, she scanned the ridgeline again. The flicker was gone, swallowed by darkness, but her instincts screamed the danger hadn't vanished. Her training wasn't forged in firefights, but in patterns, in the invisible threads of human behavior enemies thought no one noticed. That training was why she was here. Sergeant Cole shifted, muttering under his breath, his tone just loud enough for Rachel to catch. "We could sit here all night chasing ghosts." She ignored him, eyes never leaving the high ground. The slope was scarred with natural crevices, perfect firing positions. Whoever had chosen this valley had done so with intent. She replayed. The intercepted radio chatter in her mind coded phrases about visitors and preparation. At the time, analysts had debated the meaning. To her, it was no longer debate. They were the visitors. Commander Hayes leaned closer, his voice barely audible. "You're certain?" Rachel met his gaze through the shadows. "Yes, sir." Tracks leading here, disturbed terrain, reflective optics. There are shooters up there, probably waiting for us to commit deeper before opening fire. They want us funneled into the open. Hayes studied her a long moment, then nodded slightly. But before he could issue orders, another SEAL, Petty Officer Ramirez, broke the silence. "Sir, with respect, we've been running ops like this for months. Locals move through valleys all the time. Could be shepherds, could be scavengers. No shots fired. If we stall every time Intel thinks they see something, we'll never finish the mission." Several of the men murmured in agreement. They weren't reckless, but they trusted their experience. Their senses had kept them alive in more firefights than Rachel had ever seen. To them, her warnings still felt theoretical. Rachel tightened her jaw. She could feel the wall of skepticism pressing against her, thicker than any armor. "This isn't theory," she said sharply. "Look at the spacing of the tracks. Civilians don't move in straight lines like that. They scatter. And why are there no fresh signs of livestock, no carts, no children's prints? Families vanish. Overnight only when they've been warned." Her words cut into the silence. Even Cole glanced at the ground uneasily, scanning the tracks he had mapped earlier. Hayes finally raised a hand, quieting both sides. "Enough. We'll adjust formation." Cole, Ramirez set eyes on that ridge. "Sniper team, shift left, cover high ground. We move slow until I say otherwise." It wasn't full acceptance of Rachel's warning, but it was caution, a sliver of trust. They moved again, slower, calculated. Rachel followed close behind Hayes, watching the landscape like a hawk. Every shadow felt heavier, every crunch of gravel beneath boots sharper. The air carried a faint metallic scent, mingling with dust, a detail most would overlook, but which twisted her stomach. It was the smell of oiled weapons, not natural to the valley. Her earpiece crackled softly as the sniper team reported in. "Nothing definitive. Ridge looks clear, Commander." Cole smirked faintly. "Told you." Rachel's temper flared, but she swallowed it. She couldn't afford to lose composure now. She breathed slowly, replaying lessons drilled into her mind during years of analysis. The absence of evidence was not evidence of absence. Just because they couldn't see the threat didn't mean it wasn't there. They crept closer to the compound walls. The structure loomed larger, mud brick walls casting jagged silhouettes against the night sky. Too quiet, Rachel thought. A place where families once lived should carry sounds, barking dogs, faint voices, even the shuffle of life. But there was nothing. Silence pressed against her ears like weight. "Sir," she whispered urgently, "this isn't right. It's staged. They want us focused on the compound so we miss what's around us." Hayes' jaw tightened. He was torn. She could see it. His men were growing restless, their discipline strained by hesitation. He had to balance her instincts against their confidence, and every second lost risked exposure. But Rachel's unwavering stare gnawed at him. Suddenly, a faint sound broke. The stillness of pebbles sliding down the slope. All rifles swung upward, laser dots painting the rocks. The hillside froze again, empty. Cole muttered, "Probably a goat." Rachel snapped, unable to contain herself. "Stop dismissing everything as goats. This valley's empty because they cleared it." That sound was human. I'll bet my life on it. The commander cut her off with a raised hand. His eyes swept. The ridgeline again. The pebble had fallen from somewhere. Something had moved. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the team held position. The sniper's voice returned through comms, tension replacing earlier calm. Possible glint on glass. Not confirmed. Rachel's stomach clenched. That was confirmation enough for her. Hayes lowered his voice, steady but firm. "Sergeant, shift scope to that sector." Don't fire unless I give the word. The SEALs adjusted, rifles locked, but the ridge remained quiet. To them, it could still be nothing. To Rachel, it was proof of her greatest fear, patience. The enemy wasn't in a rush. They were disciplined, waiting for the SEALs to push deeper before springing the trap. Her heartbeat pounded in her chest. She could almost see the enemy's plan playing out. Wait for the SEALs to clear the compound, then pin them from above, cutting off retreat. It was classic, effective, and devastating. She leaned closer to Hayes, whispering with conviction, "Sir, we can't keep moving forward. They're baiting us. You've seen enough signs to know it. If we don't act now, we'll be in their kill box." The commander's expression was unreadable. Around them, the men shifted impatiently, torn between confidence in their leader and irritation at the analyst who kept pushing. But Hayes' silence stretched longer this time. Rachel locked eyes with him, her voice quiet but unyielding. "Trust me, just this once. Don't let them walk us into this." For the first time, Commander Hayes didn't look at the ridgeline, or the compound, or his men. He looked at her, an analyst with no combat record, standing in the dirt beside warriors who doubted her. And he saw no fear, no wavering, only conviction sharp enough to slice through his doubt. The desert seemed to hold its breath again, waiting for his decision. The compound loomed in the near distance, its walls rising like a silent sentinel against the starlit sky. Mud brick, weathered, and seemingly abandoned, it carried the eerie weight of a place emptied with intent. The SEALs spread out, each step measured, rifles angled in precise arcs. Their training demanded calm vigilance, but beneath that calm, Rachel Morgan felt danger pressing in like an invisible tide. Her instincts screamed louder now. Every angle of the compound struck her as wrong. Windows that should have shown flickers of lantern light were dark. Doors hung slightly ajar, as though villagers had left in haste. She had studied countless compounds through satellite feeds, each brimming with subtle signs of life. This one was hollow, stripped of humanity, yet far too intact to be truly abandoned. It was bait, pure and simple. Rachel whispered into her comms, her voice steady but edged with urgency. "The silence isn't natural. No dogs, no fires, no human activity. This place has been staged." "Copy," Commander Hayes replied curtly, though his eyes never stopped scanning. His voice gave away nothing, but Rachel sensed the weight of her words pressing into his judgment. Behind them, Sergeant Cole muttered something under his breath again, his tone laced with impatience. Rachel caught fragments, intel paranoia, ghosts in the shadows. She wanted to snap at him, but restrained herself. Anger wouldn't save them. Clarity would. She refocused, letting her eyes drift from the compound to the terrain. That was when she saw it again, another flicker, subtle but undeniable. A reflection glancing off glass or metal, higher along the ridge this time. Her chest tightened. That made two, maybe three distinct positions. Snipers, without a doubt. Rachel crouched low, raising her hand in warning. Movement on the ridge. Optics again. "They're watching us." The SEALs froze, their discipline immediate. Rifles lifted toward the high ground, scanning, scopes narrowing. But the ridge remained still, the desert wind whispering through thorny shrubs. Ramirez exhaled slowly. No thermal, no shapes, nothing up there. Rachel shook her head, unwilling to yield. "They're there. They're disciplined. That's why you can't see them. They're waiting for us to expose ourselves." Cole's voice carried irritation. "Or maybe you're just seeing what you want to see. With respect, Captain, we've done this 1,000 times. If there were shooters up there, they'd have taken the shot already." Rachel turned on him, her voice sharpened by conviction. "That's exactly what they want you to think. They're patient. They don't need to waste a bullet until the whole team is in the kill zone. Then it's over. The air grew heavy with silence. Even the men who had smirked earlier were now watching the ridge with sharper eyes, doubt gnawing at their confidence. Commander Hayes broke the tension with a quiet command. Sniper team, shift right. I want overwatch on that ridge. Cole, Ramirez, flank left. Don't advance to the compound until I say so. Orders were obeyed without hesitation, though Rachel felt the unease growing. The SEALs were still moving forward, closer to the walls, deeper into the valley where retreat would be harder. Every step set her nerves on edge. Her mind replayed case studies she had analyzed for years, ambushes, where elite teams had walked into carefully staged traps. She remembered grainy drone footage of soldiers cut down because they ignored subtle warnings, their confidence blinding them. The enemy here had learned from those tactics. This valley was too perfect. High ridges, narrow approach, false emptiness. She whispered again, this time directly to Hayes. Sir, please. We're seconds away from being pinned. Look at the angles. If fire opens from that ridge, we'll have no cover. We need to adjust now, either pull back or neutralize the threat before entering. Hayes' jaw tightened beneath his beard. Through his goggles, he swept the ridge again, pausing at a cluster of jagged rocks. For a fleeting second, even he thought he caught movement, just the faintest suggestion of a figure shifting. But it was gone before he could confirm. The men around him waited, tense, trusting his decision. Hayes was their anchor, and hesitation wasn't his habit. Yet tonight, hesitation gnawed at him. He had learned long ago to trust instinct, and Rachel's conviction carried weight even if her field record did not. Rachel crouched closer, whispering fiercely, Sir, this isn't nerves. This is analysis. I've tracked these insurgents for months. They set traps, they stage compounds, they let overconfidence pull teams in. If we keep moving forward, they'll cut us to pieces. Her words hit him harder than he expected. The memory of past losses flickered in his mind, comrades. Lost because he'd trusted the wrong signs. He hated hesitation, but he hated repeating mistakes more. The desert wind rose, carrying with it the faintest sound, a metallic click, distant but distinct. Hayes stiffened. His head turned slowly toward the ridge. Rachel's eyes met his, and she knew he'd heard it too. A rifle being readied. Sergeant, Hayes whispered into his calm, voice low but iron strong. Eyes on the ridge. If you see so much as a shadow move, you take the shot. Rachel exhaled, relief and dread mixing in equal measure. Finally, he was listening. But the decision came with weight. If she was wrong, they'd risk exposing themselves prematurely. If she was right, the shot could save them all. Cole's voice came through, tight with tension. Sir, are we sure about this? We pull the trigger now. We blow stealth. Could compromise the whole op. Hayes didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed locked on the ridge, waiting, calculating. The silence stretched, broken only by the thump of Rachel's racing heart. And then it came just a flicker, a figure, shifting slightly against the backdrop of stone. Barely visible, but there. Hayes saw it. Rachel had been right. He lowered his voice, quiet as a blade sliding free. Sergeant, take the shot. The order hung in the night like a blade. Sergeant, take the shot. The sniper, prone behind his rifle, adjusted his scope with measured calm. His finger brushed the trigger, his breathing steady, controlled. Through the magnified green haze of his optics, he swept across the ridge, hunting for the faint outline Hayes and Rachel swore was there. The team froze, each man holding his breath. Every second stretched impossibly long, the silence more suffocating than gunfire. Rachel's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to shout, to demand the shot, but she held herself in check. She had already risked their patience with her persistence. Now, all she could do was wait and trust Hayes' command. Cole muttered softly, just loud enough for those nearest to hear. "We're about to waste a bullet on shadows." Hayes didn't react. His jaw was set like stone, his focus locked on the ridge. The sniper's whisper crackled through the comms. "I've got something." Movement. Could be a figure. Could be brush swaying in the wind. Rachel's heart clenched. She could almost feel the enemy watching them from the darkness, unseen eyes behind scopes trained on their position. She whispered hoarsely, "That's them. They're waiting. Don't doubt it." Cole rolled his shoulders, impatience evident. "Sir, we've been out here too long. The longer we sit, the colder this op gets. Intel is spooked, that's all." Rachel snapped her gaze toward him, her voice sharp but controlled. "You think I'd risk all of you on paranoia? Every piece fits the missing villagers, the tracks, the staged compound, the optics glint. This is a trap. You want to walk into it? Fine. But you'll drag every one of us down with you." Cole's lips tightened, irritation flashing in his eyes. He'd spent years earning his place in this unit, surviving battles that tested men to their breaking point. And now, here in the dust and shadows, an outsider and intelligence officer who hadn't fired a rifle in combat was telling him how to survive. To him, it was galling. But before he could retort, Hayes spoke, his tone quiet but firm. "Enough. We don't move until we know." The words carried finality. The men obeyed, settling into silence again. Their frustration was palpable, but none dared contradict their commander. Rachel lowered her gaze to the dirt, fighting the tension coiled in her chest. She wasn't here to win arguments. She was here to keep them alive. If her instincts were wrong, her credibility would shatter. If she was right, the difference would be measured in lives spared or lost. Time dragged. The sniper's breathing was the only sound in Rachel's ear. Still watching, still not clear. "Wait, hold on. I've got eyes on a barrel. Negative, it's gone. Might have been a shadow." Her gut twisted. Shadows didn't hold steel. Shadows didn't glint. Whoever was up there was disciplined, well-trained, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She leaned toward Hayes, her whisper urgent but unwavering. "Sir, this isn't hesitation. It's strategy. They've set the field. If we move, we'll be slaughtered. You have one chance to take the initiative." Hayes didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the ridge, but she saw the war in his mind. His men trusted him to lead them, not second-guess himself. But he couldn't ignore the sharpness in Rachel's eyes, the conviction that cut deeper than doubt. The valley seemed to close tighter around them. The compound loomed closer, shadows clinging to its walls like a shroud. Every angle screamed. False security. Another sound carried on the wind, a faint metallic scrape, unmistakable to anyone who had lived in the world of war. A weapon shifting against stone. Hayes' body stiffened. He knew that sound too well. Rachel's whisper broke the silence. "That's them. They're ready." A sniper exhaled into comms, voice calm. Target confirmed. Definitely a figure. Holding still, weapon trained. Permission to fire? The tension snapped taut. Cole clenched his fists, muttering, "This is madness. We shoot now. We lose the element of surprise." Rachel turned on him fully, her words low but laced with fire. "You don't have surprise. You lost it the moment you stepped into this valley. They've been watching you since before we arrived. The only surprise left is whether you strike first or die waiting." Her words silenced him. Hayes inhaled slowly, the weight of command pressing down like the mountains themselves. He thought of the years with his men, the trust forged in sweat and fire. He thought of the missions that had gone wrong because intel had been shaky. And now, here was an intel officer and outsider asking him to gamble everything on her certainty. He glanced at her, just for a moment. Her eyes burned with clarity. No fear, no wavering. That was enough. His voice came through the comms, quiet but lethal. "Sergeant, take the shot." The sniper's trigger finger tightened. A breath. A pause, and then the rifle cracked. The sound split the night, rolling like thunder through the valley. A figure tumbled from the ridge, arms flailing, weapon clattering against rock before vanishing into the shadows below. The stillness shattered. Gunfire erupted from the hillside, a storm of muzzle flashes tearing open the night. Bullets ripped through the air, slamming into stone and dirt around the seals. The kill zone had been real all along. Rachel ducked. Low, heart pounding, as the seals returned fire with ruthless precision. The trap had been sprung, but not on them. The rifle shot cracked through the valley, a thunderclap that shattered the suffocating silence. For a split second, the world held still, frozen in that fragile breath after the trigger pull. Then the figure on the ridge crumpled, tumbling down. Jagged stone, rifle clattering against rock before disappearing into the darkness below. It was all the proof Rachel needed, but there was no time to savor vindication. The ridgeline erupted in fire. Dozens of muzzle flashes strobed the night, violent bursts of orange tearing through the darkness. Bullets hissed and screamed, ricocheting off stone, slamming into dirt inches from where the seals crouched. The valley, quiet moments before, became a furnace of violence. Contact. Hayes' voice roared into the comms, raw and commanding. Return fire. Suppression on the ridge move. Move. The SEALs snapped into action, their training transforming hesitation into precise violence. Cole and Ramirez pivoted instantly, rifles spitting controlled bursts up the slope. A sniper team fired again, dropping another figure mid-stride as shadowed enemies scrambled for cover. Rachel threw herself flat against the earth as dirt exploded inches from her face. The metallic scent of gunpowder filled the air, sharp and acrid. She covered her head with her arms, but her eyes never closed, her instincts still locked on the battlefield. 2 positions. She shouted over the chaos, pointing toward a cluster of rocks above them. One left, one higher right there. Cross-firing. Cole, teeth gritted as he fired, spat back. She's calling shots now? But even as he said it, he adjusted, sweeping fire toward the sector Rachel had pointed out. His rounds tore into the stone, and a flash of sparks erupted. As a hidden rifle was struck, a scream followed, faint but unmistakable. Hayes' voice cut across the firestorm. She's right. Shift fire. Ramirez, take the high, right? Go, go, go. The SEALs moved like liquid steel, repositioning with lethal precision. Grenades arced upward, detonating in thunderous blasts that echoed down the valley. Rock and dust rained down as insurgents scrambled out of cover, only to be cut down in the open. Rachel pressed her cheek against the dirt, forcing her breathing to steady. Fear clawed at her, raw and primal, but beneath it surged something sharper clarity. She had spent years watching battles unfold from screens thousands of miles away, analyzing enemy patterns from the safety of command centers. Now, in the dirt, with bullets slicing the air above her, those patterns came alive in brutal detail. Her voice cut sharply through the comms. They're trying to flank. Listen to the cadence left side suppresses. Right side shifts. They're moving to encircle. Hayes didn't hesitate. Bravo team, left flank. Lock it down. The SEALs shifted seamlessly, grenades and gunfire hammering the left slope. The flank collapsed before it could form, bodies tumbling in the moonlight. The enemy had underestimated their readiness. But still, the fire came relentless. The hillside was alive with shadows, enemy fighters pouring fire with deadly precision. Bullets sparked against stone, one clipping so close to Rachel's helmet she felt the shock reverberate through her skull. She gasped, adrenaline surging, then pressed her face harder into the dirt. "Captain!" Hayes barked, voice sharp even in chaos. "Where else?" Rachel's eyes swept the terrain. Her mind worked furiously, connecting every flicker, every burst, every gap in the rhythm of fire. Their ridge line, southeast quadrant. They're holding reserve shooters back, waiting for us to commit. Hayes relayed instantly. "Alpha, southeast quadrant, light them up." The team unleashed coordinated fire, hammering the sector Rachel had identified. Sure enough, 3 insurgents broke from concealment, attempting to reposition. They never made it more than a few steps before rounds cut them down. The valley roared with chaos shouts, screams, gunfire echoing in rolling waves. Dust and smoke thickened the air, turning the moonlight hazy. Every second stretched, each breath carried the possibility of being the last. Rachel crawled closer to Hayes, her voice urgent but focused. "They weren't expecting resistance here. They thought you'd walk blind into the box. They'll break if we hold the line long enough." Hayes nodded curtly, firing short bursts into the ridge. "Then we hold. Everyone, keep fire disciplined, make them bleed for every inch." Minutes passed like hours. The SEALs moved with relentless efficiency, their weapons carving arcs of destruction into the hillside. Every command from Hayes was executed without hesitation, every call-out from Rachel proving deadly accurate. Slowly, the tide shifted. The volume of enemy fire began to falter. Shouts in Pashto echoed through the night, commands to retreat, orders to fall back. Cole, sweat dripping down his face, barked a laugh between bursts. Well, I'll be damned. She was right. Rachel didn't answer. Her body trembled with adrenaline, but her eyes stayed fixed on the ridge, unwilling to let relief cloud her focus. The firefight tapered, sporadic shots echoing before fading into silence. Smoke hung heavy, dust choking the air. The hillside, once alive with flashes, now lay quiet, dotted with the dark shapes of fallen men. Hayes stood slowly, rifle still, raised, eyes scanning for lingering threats. Hold positions. Watch your sectors. No one assumes it's over until I say. The SEALs held, their discipline iron. Rachel rose to her knees, her breath ragged. Dirt streaked her face, sweat plastering strands of hair to her cheeks. She glanced around, the aftermath settling in. Bodies littered the ridge, faint silhouettes. Under the moonlight, the compound loomed still, untouched by the chaos, a hollow shell of bait. The valley stank of burned powder and blood. Hayes approached Rachel, his gaze steady. For the first time, respect softened the steel in his eyes. "You saw it when we didn't. You saved us from walking into that." Rachel exhaled, her chest heaving. "You listened. That's why we're alive." Behind him, Cole muttered something, but this time it wasn't disdain. It was grudging acknowledgement. "Hell of a call, Captain." Rachel didn't smile. There was no triumph in her expression, only relief. She knew the fight wasn't over. They had survived the ambush, but the mission had shifted. The enemy now knew they weren't easy prey. Hayes scanned the ridgeline again before speaking into comms. "Team, Titan formation. We move in 5. The compound's still priority, but this time we don't assume anything. We clear it on our terms." Rachel nodded, though unease still knotted her gut. The battle was won, but the war wasn't. The enemy had prepared for them, and that meant intelligence had been compromised somewhere. Someone had known they were coming. As the team reloaded magazines, adjusted gear, and prepared to advance again, Rachel stood in the dirt, her heart still racing. She had earned a measure of trust tonight, but with it came responsibility heavier than she had imagined. The valley whispered with silence once more, but she no longer mistook it for peace. It was the silence of a battlefield, pausing, waiting for the next move. And Rachel knew one thing with absolute certainty. The fight had only just begun. The valley lay shrouded in smoke, the acrid scent of gunpowder still thick in the air. The ridge that had been a death trap moments ago now stood silent, littered with the fallen. The SEALs crouched behind scattered rocks, rifles trained, eyes scanning every shadow. Every man knew survival had hinged on split-second decisions and the clarity of the intelligence guiding them. Rachel Morgan's chest heaved, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Dirt and dust streaked her uniform, her gloves torn at the knuckles from gripping the rifle too tightly. But there was no time for relief. The battle was over. Yes, but the mission remained. The compound still loomed ahead, its walls looming like a silent reminder of what they had come to do. "Check your sectors," Hayes ordered, voice calm but commanding. Nothing left on the ridge. Move forward, but carefully, eyes sharp. The SEALs obeyed instantly, moving with the fluid efficiency that came from years of training together. Each man covered another, overlapping fields of fire. The sniper team retracted to new positions, ready to provide overwatch as the unit advanced. Rachel crouched low beside Hayes, whispering over the comms. "Left flank, gap 3 o'clock. I see movement could be stragglers. Suppress before we advance." "Copy," Hayes responded. "Alpha, shift fire. Cover the flank." Bullets tore through the valley, precise bursts cutting down any figure attempting to move into firing positions. Within moments, the area cleared of enemy threats, leaving the SEALs free to press forward. Cole glanced at Rachel, eyes still wary, but tinged with newfound respect. "You are right again. I'll give you that." Rachel didn't reply. Her focus remained on the terrain ahead. She had no illusions. The ambush had been only the first layer. The enemy had prepared this compound as bait, and they would have additional defenses waiting for the team. Every step forward required vigilance. The SEALs advanced cautiously, boots crunching against the gravel-strewn ground. Dust hung in the air, mingling with the scent of spent gunpowder and the faint tang of blood. The night seemed to press down, heavy with tension. Every shadow was a potential threat, every sound amplified in the stillness. "Compound wall, 50 meters, Hayes whispered. "Eyes on all angles. Watch windows, doors, rooftops. We go slow." Rachel's eyes flicked to the mud brick walls. Faint cracks and irregularities caught her attention, possible sniper positions, or places where explosives could be hidden. Her training screamed caution. "Sir, wall to our right cracks in structure. Could be pressure points for tripwires or explosive traps." Hayes nodded subtly, passing the information to the team. The SEALs adjusted their path slightly, minimizing exposure. Petty Officer Ramirez scanned the rooftop with binoculars. Nothing moving. Seems clear, but caution could be booby traps. Rachel's pulse quickened. Booby traps were the hallmark of this enemy's defensive tactics. One misstep could trigger explosives, collapse walls, or set off secondary ambushes. She signaled to Hayes. "Check for wiring, trip triggers, stay low, cover all entries. I'll sweep ahead with thermal scope." Hayes agreed, and Rachel took point cautiously, scanning every inch of the approach. Her eyes caught faint wires glinting in moonlight, subtle trip triggers near the doors and windows. She marked them discreetly for the SEALs, who neutralized them with precise care. Cole whispered under his breath, half in awe. "I've seen traps before, but I didn't see half of what she's pointing out." Rachel ignored him, eyes fixed on the next challenge. The team reached the compound wall, finally close enough to see the interior. The courtyard was dark. Empty, or so it seemed. Windows reflected the moonlight like silent sentinels, and doorways gaped like dark mouths waiting to swallow anyone who entered unprepared. "Breach points?" Hayes asked quietly. Rachel traced the layout from memory, recalling the intelligence overlays she had studied for weeks. Main gate reinforced. Side entry partially obstructed. Rooftops may have enemy sentries. Thermal. Would help confirm? Hayes nodded. "We'll breach side, cover rooftop. Alpha team, suppress if anything moves. Snipers overwatch." The SEALs split, each member flowing into their designated position with lethal precision. Rachel stayed close, guiding movements, calling out threats, and observing every shadow. Each second was measured, deliberate. The team had survived the ambush, but now they had to engage the compound, and the enemy would know they were coming. A faint scrape sounded from the rooftop, a shadow shifting against the moonlight. Rachel froze, hand gripping her radio. Roof 3 o'clock, possible movement. Engage only if hostile confirmed. Hayes gestured, and the sniper team trained. On the sector, a burst of fire sent a figure tumbling to the ground, confirming Rachel's observation. Cole grunted. "Damn, she's dead on." Rachel said nothing, scanning again. Her instincts told her the fight wasn't over. The compound had been prepared for an assault, but the initial ambush had been just a test, a calculated strike, to gauge response and weaken the team psychologically. She studied every window, every doorway. Her eyes fell on a faint glint near the far courtyard entrance. Doorway south side. Small reflective surface. Could be optics or sensor. Warm. Alpha. Hayes passed the command along. Alpha adjusting their approach. They moved slowly, weapons ready, covering Rachel as she led them through the narrow passage. Every step was deliberate, every breath calculated. Inside, the compound smelled of dust and neglect. Broken pottery littered the floor, doors hung unevenly, and shadows danced under their flashlights. Rachel guided them carefully, pointing out potential traps and unsafe footing. The SEALs followed without question now, their trust in her absolute. The team reached the central courtyard. Empty, silent, deceptively calm. Rachel scanned every angle, every shadow. Clear for now, but roof lines and doors must still be secured. Keep watch, do not assume safe until we confirm. Hayes studied her. You're right. Keep leading. Your eyes saved us tonight. Rachel's chest tightened, relief tempered by the weight of responsibility. The team had survived the ambush because she had been right, but they were still in enemy territory. Every caution now could mean the difference between success and death. Outside, the desert wind carried the faintest whisper of movement. Inside, every heartbeat in sync with the rhythm of alertness. Rachel led the way, not with arrogance, but with unyielding focus. The SEALs followed, moving like shadows themselves, each man trusting her guidance as they pushed forward deeper into the compound's dark heart. And Rachel knew the night wasn't over. The fight had shifted from survival to strategy. The enemy had been tested, but now the team would strike with purpose and with precision. The compound's walls rose before them, jagged and imposing under the moonlight. Dust hung in the air, mingling with the faint scent of gunpowder from the ambush just cleared on the ridge. The SEALs advanced in formation, rifles raised, eyes scanning every shadow. Every footfall was deliberate, every breath measured. Rachel Morgan stayed close to Commander Hayes, whispering tactical updates and warnings. Rooftop to the northwest, she said quietly. I see movement enemy. May still be trying to use height to advantage. Alpha team cover that sector. Hayes nodded, signaling the team. Alpha moved, rifles sweeping across the rooftops, as the sniper team locked down high angles. Cole muttered under his breath, not loud enough for her to hear. "I can't believe we're trusting her instincts again." Rachel ignored him. There was no room for ego here. Lives depended on focus, on clarity, on anticipating the enemy when he thought himself hidden. The main gate loomed ahead, reinforced and partially obstructed. Rachel guided Hayes to the side entry, pointing out the subtle signs she had studied: scratches in the mud brick, faint lines that could hide tripwires, small reflective glints that hinted at sensors or optics. "This entry is safer," she whispered. "But watch for explosives, pressure points on the floor, wires near the threshold." Hayes signaled the team. The SEALs shifted silently, moving into position with precision that only years of training could achieve. Rachel swept ahead with her thermal scope, scanning every inch of the approach. She caught a faint heat signature near a collapsed wall. "Section 2 at the far corner," she warned. "They're trying to regroup, suppress before advancing." Alpha Team opened fire with controlled bursts, forcing the figures to duck behind cover. Explosions from carefully placed grenades rocked the ground, scattering debris and dust. The SEALs pressed forward, covering each other as they closed the gap. Inside the compound, the air was tense, thick with the remnants of dust and gunfire. Broken pottery littered the ground, doors hung unevenly, and the shadows of empty rooms stretched across the walls. Rachel guided the team carefully, pointing out potential tripwires, unstable floorboards, and other hazards the enemy had left behind. "Clear left corridor," Hayes ordered, moving with his team. "Watch doors and windows." Rachel crouched low, scanning the corridor. Nothing. Yet, but roofline still needs coverage. Thermal sweep recommended before anyone moves further. Cole glanced at her, frustration mixing with reluctant acknowledgement. "I have to admit, she's seeing things I would have missed." Rachel didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the shadows, every detail analyzed for hidden threats. Every flicker of movement was noted, every anomaly catalogued. Suddenly, a faint scrape sounded from above a shadow, shifting along the upper floor. Rachel froze, hand gripping the radio. "Roof 3 o'clock. Possible movement. Engage only if hostile confirmed." Hayes signaled the sniper team. A precise burst of fire sent a figure tumbling to the floor, confirming Rachel's observation. The SEALs pressed forward, carefully securing each room. The compound's interior was deceptively quiet. Each step echoed, each door creak magnified in the tense air. Rachel's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the sheer concentration the moment demanded. One wrong step could trigger a hidden explosive or expose the team to sniper fire. She guided them room by room, marking cleared areas and noting suspicious spots. "South wing looked secure," she reported, "but west corner possible hiding spot. Check for secondary threats." Hayes acknowledged, and the team moved with renewed focus. The SEALs, once skeptical of her presence, now followed her guidance with absolute trust. Her instincts, honed through months of analyzing enemy behavior, had become their lifeline. Sudden noise, a shifting of debris made Rachel tense. "East side, under the balcony, one moving," she shouted. Cole spun, rifle raised, and a controlled burst hit the figure attempting to flee. The enemy was desperate, disorganized after the failed ambush, but still dangerous. The SEALs pressed relentlessly, clearing every corner, every shadowed room. Minutes stretched into hours, though only seconds had passed. Each action was deliberate, each movement a dance of precision under fire. Rachel's voice guided them, calm and unflinching, giving them eyes where the darkness obscured their own. Finally, the compound was secured. The rooms lay empty, the enemy either neutralized or fled. The SEALs took a moment to breathe, scanning the courtyard and rooftops for any lingering threats. Hayes turned to Rachel, dirt streaking his face, sweat dripping from his brow. His green eyes met hers, and for the first time, he allowed himself a small, rare smile. "You were right every step of the way. You saved us from that ambush, and you guided us through this compound. We owe you." Rachel exhaled, tension leaving her in a slow rush. "We did it together. You trusted the calls. That's what saved us." Cole, Ramirez, and the rest of the team gathered around, expressions. A mix of awe and grudging respect. "Never thought I'd say this," Cole muttered, "but damn, Captain, you were spot on." Rachel allowed herself a small nod, acknowledging their respect without pride. She had done her job, kept them alive, guided them through chaos, and ensured the mission could continue. But she knew the danger wasn't over. They were still deep in enemy territory. Every cleared room, every neutralized threat was only temporary security. Hayes surveyed the compound again, eyes sharp. "Team, Titan formation. Watch your sectors. The mission isn't done. We consolidate here, but we move on schedule. Intelligence indicates more resistance beyond the valley. Be ready." The SEALs repositioned, weapons sweeping the rooftops and corridors. Rachel stayed close, scanning, marking, observing. Her role had shifted from analyst to guide, from observer to participant, and she bore that responsibility without hesitation. Outside, the moonlight cast long shadows over the courtyard. The air was thick with dust, smoke, and the lingering tension of near death. Every member of the team carried a heightened awareness, their movements sharp, deliberate, and coordinated. Rachel moved among them, offering guidance, confirming cleared areas, and ensuring traps or hazards were marked. Her presence was no longer questioned. It was relied upon. Her voice, once doubted, now directed the actions of elite operators in one of the most dangerous situations of their careers. As dawn approached, the first hints of light touched the mountains. The compound, once a trap, now stood as a secured position, a testament to the team's skill and to Rachel's analysis. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, but only briefly. The valley beyond still held uncertainty. Hayes approached her again, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "You've earned your place with this team. Not just today, but always. We'll remember this, what you did tonight." Rachel nodded, silently acknowledging the weight of his words. The SEALs gathered, some offering nods, others brief words of respect. The dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Rachel was no longer just an observer. She was a part of the mission, a crucial element of the team's survival and success. The valley was quiet now, but Rachel's mind raced ahead. Every detail mattered. Every shadow, every crack, every reflective glint was a possible threat. The battle had been won, but vigilance could not waver. She swept the compound one last time, marking exits, confirming cleared sectors, and noting points of concern. Hayes followed her lead, allowing her insight to shape the team's next steps. The team finally gathered in the central courtyard. The men were exhausted, covered in dirt and sweat, but alive, and they owed their survival in no small part to Rachel's guidance. Rachel exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the night lift just slightly. The mission was far from over, but the ambush had been overcome. The SEALs had survived, thanks to quick thinking, coordination, and the insight of someone they had once doubted. For a moment, the valley seemed to breathe with them. Dawn's first light painted the walls in pale gold. Shadows retreated, leaving the compound standing secure, silent, and victorious. Rachel looked around at the team, her gaze steady. "Stay focused. Watch your sectors. The next phase begins now. The enemy knows we're here. They'll adapt. We do the same." Hayes nodded. "We follow your calls, Captain. Lead the way." And with that, Rachel took point once more, guiding the SEALs forward into the uncertain light of morning. Each step a reminder that survival depended not only on strength and training, but on clarity, instinct, and trust earned in the crucible of battle. The first rays of dawn crept over the valley, spilling pale gold light across the compound. Shadows shrank, revealing the scars of battle, dust-streaked walls, craters in the ground where explosives had detonated, and the silent forms of enemy combatants who had underestimated their opposition. The SEALs moved methodically, scanning the surroundings, clearing every room and rooftop, and ensuring that the area was secure before exhaling even slightly. Rachel Morgan crouched beside Commander Hayes, surveying the aftermath with sharp, calculating eyes. Her body ached from the night's exertions, her gloves torn, her uniform streaked with dust and dried sweat. Yet her mind remained alert, analyzing the environment, observing every detail, every potential weakness that might have gone unnoticed. Survival demanded nothing less. Hayes lowered his voice, a rare softness in it. "Captain Morgan, thanks to your observations, every one of my men walked out of that valley alive. You saved this team tonight." Rachel shook her head slightly, keeping her voice calm despite the rush of adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "We did it together, sir. You made the decisions. My job was to make sure you had all the information you needed. That's all." Cole approached, still rubbing the dirt from his palms. "I'll admit it. I doubted you, Morgan. I thought you were overreacting, thinking too much. But you were right. Every move you predicted, every warning, it all came true." A faint smile touched Rachel's lips. It was the first recognition from the man who had been most skeptical, and it carried more weight than any formal commendation. The SEALs, grizzled veterans of countless operations, had finally seen her value, not as a bystander, but as a vital link in their chain of survival. Ramirez, adjusting his rifle, added quietly, "We might have walked straight into hell if we ignored you." Not many analysts would have survived that ridge and the compound intact, let alone guided us through it. "You earned your place here, Captain." Rachel nodded again, silent acknowledgement passing between them. The battlefield had a way of forging respect quickly, and tonight she had earned it. But there was little time for celebration. The mission, though successfully defended, was far from complete. Hayes gathered the team in the central courtyard, a sense of unity settling over them despite their exhaustion. "We secure the perimeter, account for all personnel, and document any intel we can extract from the compound. Morgan, help coordinate the sweep. Your eyes are sharper than ours, and tonight proved it." Rachel moved efficiently, coordinating the team as they documented weapons caches, potential explosives, and structural weaknesses. She marked points for demolition, indicated routes for safe movement, and guided the SEALs through the compound's maze of corridors and courtyards. Each action was precise, deliberate, leaving nothing to chance. As the team worked, Rachel allowed herself a brief moment to reflect. Months of analyzing enemy behavior, reviewing intelligence, and predicting tactical outcomes had led to this. Night, every pattern, every anomaly she had studied, had informed the decisions that now saved lives. Yet she knew that analysis alone had never been enough. It was the combination of instinct, situational awareness, and decisive action that made the difference. The SEALs, initially skeptical of her presence, now moved with implicit trust. They followed her guidance without hesitation, covering sectors she had identified, neutralizing residual threats, and ensuring that every corner of the compound was secure. The earlier friction between theory and experience had dissolved in the crucible of action. Respect replaced doubt. Cole approached Rachel again, gesturing toward the compound's main gate. "See those entry points? Without your warnings about the tripwires and possible explosives, someone would have walked right into them. I owe you more than I can say. Rachel shook her head, though she appreciated the acknowledgement. That's why I'm here, she replied, to make sure you see what you might miss. But your discipline and execution, that's what kept us alive. I can guide, but you act. Hayes stepped closer, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. We're lucky to have you. I don't say that lightly. Tonight proved that insight, courage, and calm precision can save lives just as much as bullets. You've earned your place beside us, Morgan. Not just in this mission, but in this team. The SEALs, standing around them, exchanged glances. Some offered nods, others brief murmurs of acknowledgement. The dynamic had shifted completely. Rachel was no longer an outsider, an analyst observing from a distance. She was a trusted part of the unit, her voice carrying weight in both planning and execution. Despite the relief, Rachel's mind remained alert. The enemy had been defeated. Here, but intelligence suggested further resistance in surrounding valleys. She scanned the landscape, noting points of elevation, potential ambush zones, and escape routes. Every detail mattered. The night had taught hard lessons, but survival depended on anticipating the next challenge, not resting on past successes. Hayes spoke again, voice steady, commanding presence returning. We consolidate here, ensure all intel is secured, and prepare for extraction. Morgan, coordinate with the snipers and Alpha. Team, your insights will guide our exit and prevent any follow-up attacks. Rachel moved swiftly, directing the team. Her eyes caught subtle shadows, minor inconsistencies in the terrain, and possible traps left by the retreating enemy. She marked these points for demolition teams and advised on safe movement paths. The team followed, seamless in their execution. As the sun rose fully over the mountains, the valley transformed from a site of violent chaos to one of cautious order. Dust settled, light filled the courtyards, and the silence was once again thick, but no longer ominous. The compound, once a trap, stood secured. The SEALs had survived, and the mission had been salvaged. Rachel took a moment to breathe, her body aching, her mind racing with tactical analysis. She looked around at the team, gritty, exhausted, but alive. Their survival wasn't just a matter of training. It was trust, timing, and the rare clarity that had guided them through the night. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a quiet satisfaction. Lives had been saved, lessons learned, and respect earned. Cole approached her one final time, voice low but sincere. You are right. Every step, every warning, you kept us alive. I won't forget it. Not tonight. Rachel allowed herself a small nod. Words weren't necessary. The battle had spoken louder than any acknowledgement. Hayes gathered the team once more. We leave this compound in secure condition, maintain vigilance, and move out on schedule. Tonight proved that trust, preparation, and analysis are as lethal as firepower. Morgan, your guidance saved lives. The team owes you, and so do I. Rachel met his gaze, holding it steady. We did what we had to do. That's enough. But deep down, she knew the respect earned was more than enough. In the crucible of battle, she had proven that intelligence and instinct were indispensable, sometimes as crucial as the rifles in the SEALs' hands. As the extraction helicopters approached, the team gathered their gear, accounted for personnel, and secured the compound. Rachel followed Hayes to the landing zone, her eyes sweeping for lingering threats. Every detail, every risk, had to be accounted for. The helicopters touched down, dust whipping through the courtyard. The SEALs boarded with practiced efficiency, loading weapons and equipment, their eyes never leaving the perimeter. Rachel stayed close to Hayes, still scanning, still vigilant, still guiding. As they lifted off, the compound shrank below them, a silent reminder of the battle fought, the lives saved, and the trust forged under fire. The valley, once a trap, now stood as a testament to precision, coordination, and courage, both physical and intellectual. Rachel exhaled finally, allowing herself the smallest moment of relief. The mission had been a success. Lives had been saved, and the seals had come to trust her guidance completely. She had earned her place, not through rank, but through action, insight, and unwavering focus. The helicopters rose higher, carrying them away from the valley. Below, the compound stood silent, the morning sun reflecting off the mud brick walls. Rachel's eyes swept the horizon, already analyzing, already planning, already aware that the battle had ended, but the war for survival never truly did. And for the first time in the night, she allowed herself a brief, quiet smile. They had survived. She had proven herself. And the team, skeptical at first, had seen the value of intelligence, instinct, and unwavering vigilance in the face of chaos. The valley receded beneath them, a battlefield transformed into a testament to survival, strategy, and trust earned in fire and shadow. Rachel's mind remained alert, already anticipating the next move, the next challenge, the next decision. That could mean life or death. But for now, she allowed herself this one moment of reflection, knowing she had done her duty and done it well.